Okay, Mr. Pope, we're ready to start here today.
So it is officially 2:01. I'm happy to get started.
All right. We'll convene this meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Equalization. Appreciate everyone being here today on August 12, 2024. David Lillard, Tennessee State Treasurer and Vice Chair of the Board. We'll ask first, we have any public comments that have been filed with us, Mr. Pope?
Yes, however, first we probably want to call the roll. We do have 2 members appearing virtually during today's meeting.
Okay, all right, call the roll.
All right, we got Ms. Burchett, I believe, online.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, perfect. Commissioner Jaragano. Here. Ms. Merrick.
Here.
Comptroller Mumpower.
Here.
Treasurer, we have Treasurer Lillard, of course, and Secretary Hargett. So Vice Chair Lillard, you have a in-person quorum for conducting business, and you will have 2 members appearing virtually in accordance with Tennessee's open meetings requirements. Since at least 1 member is sitting virtually, we'll have to do a roll call vote on our action items.
All right, so the next time would be public comments then. Do we have any comments that have been noted to us, Mr. Pope?
You do. You have 2 distinct groups wishing to address the board today. One are those members of the public wishing to make public comment on relevant agenda items pursuant to our public comment parameters. And as well, the second group being parties in contested cases under agenda item number 7 related to petitions for review. The board's public comment period is reserved as just now, beginning immediately following the call to order and once a quorum has been established. The board may, but is not required to accept oral argument regarding those appeal items that were identified. If you do wish to accept oral argument, you may choose to do so during the actual agenda item rather than right now at the beginning of the meeting. However, we will go over the public comment that I sent out last Friday, identifying our public commenter and those items and wishes he wishes to comment on. Let's see. Each commenter, or one commenter today, is to identify himself at the beginning of their time. You will have 2 minutes per agenda item. So we'll have Mr. Scruggs, I believe, had 6 agenda items he wanted to comment on, so a total of 6 minutes. The board may ask questions at any time excuse me, I'm getting a little feedback on there. Anytime used for questions will not be subtracted from the speaker's allotted 2 minutes. At the end of each 2 minutes, I'll raise my hand here up at the podium to signify that their time has elapsed. And in that order, I do believe we have Mr. Scruggs online. Mr. Scruggs, can you give us a shout to make sure we can hear you before we begin your public comment period?
Yes, can you hear me, Mr. Pope?
I can, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the State Board, for allowing me to address you. And also I thank the legislature for passing that statute. What I'm going to talk to you about very briefly, and I don't think I'll need 6 minutes, is that the taxpayers have an arduous uphill journey in their tax appeals. First of all, they go against the county, who has much more resources. The DPA furnishes assistants and witnesses at no charge. The comptroller supplies his assistant general counsel to represent them at no charge. So that's a difficult task. And now, unfortunately, the Assessment Appeals Commission has been abolished, and the Assessment Appeals Commission was a citizen board that reviewed decisions of ALJs. Ogden Stokes, who passed away in 2022, was the chair of the Assessment Appeals Commission for a long time. He told me that only widows, orphans, and very complex cases ended up at the Assessment Appeals Commission. And I'm concerned about all 3, widows, orphans, and complex cases. ALJs are humans, and they make mistakes. They make mistakes in math. They make mistakes in logic. They make mistakes in law. They make mistakes in accepted appraisal practice. And sometimes they disregard the standards by which reasonable cause should be found. There needs to be a review method to correct that and not make those taxpayers have to go to Chancery Court. So I'm not here to just tell you the problem. I do have a suggestion, and it is a suggestion because you certainly make the rules, but there's some confusion now as to what your review methodology is and how it's approached. So what I'm suggesting is that you delegate all petitions to review to the executive secretary. And the executive secretary should allow the appellant to brief him on why that case is important and should be heard. And then after that, the executive secretary could point out to you obvious errors and mistakes, which there have been many, mathematical and otherwise, that you could correct easily and you could correct them quickly. Then, as to other petitions that are more complex or difficult, I think the executive secretary could suggest to you that you take jurisdiction and hear those. Now, I know that you are very busy people on the State Board of Equalization and you have other complex jobs. But what I'm suggesting is that if the executive secretary recommends to you and you decide to hear a case, then you just allow 15 minutes for each side. You can hear the case without all of you being there. All you have to have is a quorum. And what that will do, and I think very, very few cases would you have to hear. And what that would do is prevent having to have a taxpayer spend $25,000 to $50,000 to go to Chancery Court to correct maybe an error in math, an error in logic, an error in law, disregard of appraisal practice, disregard of reasonable cause. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you, Mr. Scruggs. Mr. Pope.
If those are all of Mr. Scruggs' comments, then that will conclude our public comment period for this meeting.
Yeah, if I might apprise you, I did have listed number 5, which was the report of the Division of Property Assessment. At this time, I'm not able to address you because I don't have the records that I would address you concerning. We have filed a public records request, and when we get that information, we'll address you at a different meeting. Thank you a lot.
That'll bring us to our first action item. That's review of the meeting minutes from April 8th, 2024.
Okay, are there any comments, questions, or corrections to the minutes for April 8, 2024? Seeing none, is there a motion with respect to the minutes? Motion for approval and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Pope, would you call the roll on the motion to approve?
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Jaragano,
Yes.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. Okay, item is approved. All right, item number 4 is the next item, assessment education programs, an action item. Kinsey.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Brian Kinsey. I'm the director of the Comptroller's Division of Property Assessments. And so this agenda item is a routine matter. We come to you once each year to enact the laws and rules of our state here which incentivize education and training amongst assessors and their deputies. So what we bring before you as a report, which summarizes that we have 68 people in county offices across the state that are due to receive this incentive compensation for a total amount of $62,616.13. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this program or anything along those lines.
All right, so your action here would be for item 4A, approval of assessment designations, and also for resolution approving payment of additional compensation, correct? So,
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a part, didn't I?
did you? Yeah.
There's an A and a B here, and I was too eager to get to the B. So the agenda item 4A, I'm sorry. That is for what we have 5 people that have earned certifications in part of the same program, assessor incentive and compensation program. We have 5 people: Keith Marsh from our own Division of Property Assessments, Barry Easley from Montgomery County, Cheryl Lonergan from Montgomery County, Thomas Lee Nadeau from Montgomery County, and Jeffrey Young also from Montgomery County. And we have verified that they meet the criteria to earn these certifications. We're just asking you to approve those as well.
Any questions of the director in regard to either item 4A or 4B? We'll take those 2 items together. So the motion is to approve both. Is there a second? A second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Pope, call the roll on the motion to approve 4A and 4B.
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Jaragino,
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
I'm,
Your next item is agenda item.
that's approved. Those items are approved. Item 5 is the report of director of the Division of Property Assessments. Director Kinsey.
Okay, Brian Kinsey again, Director, Division of Property Assessments. So once again, this is a routine matter. Once a year by law, we are, Division of Property Assessments is required to create a report and present it to the State Board of Equalization. So once again, we present to you our annual report, which covers fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, which highlights a lot of the significant work that our division does on behalf of the Comptroller's Office and on behalf of the taxpayers of Tennessee in our efforts to make government better. Be happy to answer any questions you might have about the annual report.
Any questions of the director on the matter? All right. Seeing none, thank you for the report. Okay. All right, next item is item 6, review and approval of Shelby County CAMA system change.
Hello, members of the board. Ryan Duggan, Assistant Director, Division of Property Assessments. So in March of this year, the Shelby County Assessor's Office notified the Comptroller's Office of their intent to change CAMA systems to Assess Pro by Catalyst. It's our understanding that Shelby County currently operates 2 CAMA systems, one for their real property, which is Enterprise Assessment and Tax by Tyler Technologies, and one for their personal property data, which is Sigma, and is currently being maintained in-house by their IT folks. Their most immediate need seems to be a change for their personal property data. So in keeping with past CAMA change requests from other counties, DPA followed our standard procedure for reviewing the request. This includes a review of the CAMA system itself, notification to all jurisdictions that collect property tax within Shelby County, and the ability of the office to administer their own CAMA system. Shelby County has the capability, resources, and personnel, obviously, to administer their own CAMA system because they've done it for decades. They have successfully converted CAMA systems in the past as well. We feel at the DPA, the key to a successful conversion is for them to put their most knowledgeable staff on the project to keep it on track. I'm available for questions, and I believe Shelby County's here as well.
Okay. We have any questions of Comptroller staff in regard to this?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Comptroller, you're recognized.
I'd like to ask a few questions of the Shelby County staff present.
Okay, all right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. For the record, Javier Bailey, Chief Administrator for Shelby County Assessor.
Welcome, Mr. Bailey. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Comptroller, I also have technical staff here with me as well.
Yes, thank you very much for being there. I'm sorry I'm not there in person today. I'm in the Upper East enclave of the Comptroller's Office. Talk to us about, of course, the CAMA system is extremely important, and as Ryan said, you all have demonstrated the ability to operate one. And if you will, talk about what has led to your desire to change, and in particular, your desire to change right now as you're in the midst of a reappraisal. And are you going to change both the personal property system now and the real property system now, or are you going to operate, in essence, 2 CAMA systems for a while? Just talk to us about the origin of your request, if you will.
That's a good question, Mr. Comptroller. The initial issue arose because we've had the same CAMA system for over 2 decades. I was with Rita Clark's office when she was assessor. We had CLT at that time. CLT was then acquired by the folks that produced the, I just for short call them Tyler, but they acquired that system. And so we've had the same system in place for over 2 decades. Questions from the local legislative body, county commission, and the administration began to arise because we have not been bidding it out. The contract that we're under had unlimited extensions of the current contract. So, we were able to answer most of those questions to the administration and the commission. But then we began to look at other systems, primarily because we felt that we had a fiduciary duty, taxpayers, to, have the most efficient, cost-efficient, and efficiently run system. So we looked at other cities. We looked at Houston, Atlanta, Nashville, Davidson County, Hamilton County, and a couple other cities to see what they were doing. Cities whose growth had been quite substantial, and how they were able to, with half our staff, to handle the type of growth that they had and to do it efficiently. And the system that we are requesting your approval on became one that really caught our eye. We then spent some time. Our staff came up and we spent time with Davidson County staff, watched the system operate, work with their staff to see whether or not it would meet our needs. And we were almost sold on it at that point. It's a cloud-based system. And then likewise, it's Windows-based. But more so than anything else, all of the various modules that we're paying extra money for are all in one system. And that just for the most part sold us. I think I'm answering your question, Mr. Controller, but that was the origin of the request. Since then, we have had, in working with Department of Property Assessments, Mr. Duggan, the questions regarding conversion and changing in the middle of a reappraisal have arisen. We do not intend to change systems in the middle of a reappraisal. We will not go live, if you approve our use of the new camera system. We won't go live with that system until after the April 2025. What we intend to do is to go ahead and purchase the new system and run them parallel so that we can do the conversion, get the kinks out, work on tables and modules. And once we've got it where we're comfortable that it's fully operable and ready to go, at that point, after the reappraisal is certified, we will be able to, we're proposing at least, with that point, go live with it. Am I answering your question?
Well, and so, yes, you are. Thank you very much. Talk about the difference in the personal property and real property. Are you waiting for both of them until after April of 2025?
No, sir. I'm glad you clarified that. The personal property module that we're using right now is, first of all, the company doesn't exist anymore for all practical purposes, and it's unsupported. So we have had, it crashes on us every year, and Shelby County IT and our in-house IT staff have to go in and write programs, write script to get it back up and running. It's unsupported. There's no, we're really, it's on fumes, it's on life support. And so we do need to get that system inputted and up and running. And that is our intent is to install and go ahead and get that personal property module up and running.
The personal property pretty much immediately, real property after April of 2025.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And for the extent of time, in essence, that you were paying for operating two systems, that all falls within the parameters of your budget.
Yes, sir. So we were prepared at one point to go ahead and recontract with the current vendor. And what we ended up doing was going back to the commission and asking them not to take those funds from us. But we did not submit that contract to the commission. So we're still holding those funds, and that will be they will be utilized to go ahead and get the personal property module up and going. And we don't anticipate any issues with funding or budget at this point. We've got the money.
Do you have, who will you be relying on? You talked about, I know you have some folks with you from your IT staff within the office. Will they be maintaining the new system? Will you have somebody on your staff working on that, or will you be relying on vendors for this new? Will you have somebody in your office that's always in your office that's competent with it? Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Now, if you go, I'll answer that and say yes. But if you get too technical on me, Mr. Comptroller, I'm gonna have to call my IT guy up here. I'll be out of my lane all the way.
Well, that's actually,
yes,
that's
the
actually
yes
the
is the
perfect
answer to your
thing. Will
question.
you have somebody, will you have that IT guy who's familiar and competent with that system? Is that going to be somebody on your staff, or are you going to be relying on a vendor to do that?
No, sir, we won't rely solely on a vendor. We have a very competent IT staff in-house. We've just sent 2 of those guys for training to get certifications in this kind of thing. Mr. Vincent Jennings is our IT director. He's here with me. We likewise have a contract that we've entered into for equipment updating, so forth and so on with the county, and we pay for that. And so all of that will be in-house. Of course, the vendor has a role in that as well. But in terms of day-to-day maintenance, Mr. Comptroller, we can do that in-house.
There we go. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions. Javier, thank you very much.
Yes, sir, Mr. Comptroller.
Mr. Bailey, let me ask you, in terms of visibility into the system of the county here, as I understand it, most all of our other counties give the Division of Property Assessments visibility into the CAMA system that the county is using, and y'all don't do that in Shelby County with the current system, as
I think we do.
Do you do that now?
think-
With DPA, do we have that in terms of Shelby County?
We do, but we receive data extracts from all of the 9 counties that are not on their current system.
Okay.
We don't actually have a log.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I just wanted to confirm that for.
So, yeah, it's been this administration's, Mr. Chairman, it's
Mhm.
been this administration's position that we will give, read only, but full access to the state, and any extracts that they need, we do them right away.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr. Bailey here? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir.
All right, the item that we're on here is item number 6, review and approval of Shelby County CAMA system change. Do we have a motion with respect to that?
Moved.
Have a motion for approval by the secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner seconds it. Further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Pope, call the roll on the motion to approve.
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgino.
Aye.
Ms. Mary,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. All right, so that item is approved. All right, next item is item 7, review of petitions for review, which are on pages 34 through 52 of our materials. Mr. Pope, would you present this item?
Yes. Sorry, we're getting a little bit feedback from people on the line. Just a friendly reminder that
If you're not speaking, mute your microphone, please, so we don't get feedback. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before the board are 7 new appeals asking for the board to members of the board to review various initial decisions and orders of administrative judges. Additionally, 2 appeals are from our April meeting that were referred to me for review and advisement at the next regular meeting of the board. I've included my suggested board action in the form of a proposed order for both of those cases. I'll first address our newly filed appeals. Appeals to the State Board of Equalization are first heard by an administrative judge who receives proof submitted by the parties and renders a final or a written initial decision in order. Unless one or both of those parties or the board elects to review that initial decision, that decision will become the final agency action on the appeal. Appeal to members of the board is not required before proceeding to judicial review or appeal to Chancery Court. It is an optional step in the appeals process. In preparation for today's meeting, I have notified the parties in the appeals scheduled for today's meeting that their appeal is scheduled for today's meeting, how to submit any additional written argument, and how to present any oral argument or request to present oral argument. And also what will be included for board review. Generally, that's a copy of the administrative record, audio recording of the appeal hearings, and any additional written arguments submitted by the parties. And those materials were shared separately and electronically due to their size. Review by you as the members of the board is discretionary, and you as the board members, as the board, are not required to exercise review. Declining to exercise review essentially mean the initial decision and order of the administrative judge would become the final agency action, and the parties would be free to seek judicial review from there. However, the board does have several options. In addition to that, they may review some or all of the issues raised. They can delegate review to one or more persons. They can delegate review subject to additional adoption by the board. And or as stated previously, they can decline review entirely. The board may, but is not required to allow the presentation of oral argument before rendering a final decision. I've identified those parties seeking to present oral argument regarding their appeals. Alternatively, too, if the board would like additional time to review any of these items or following oral argument, you can defer action to another meeting.
Okay, which cases do we have people present for here today for the petitioner side?
We have several people present for various cases, either virtually or in person. I did ask that people who wanted to present oral argument specifically note their request to do so. And I did only receive a request from on behalf of a couple of the appeals today. I received a request on behalf of Mr. Bobby Claiborne, who was here in person.
Okay.
Page. Sorry, I'm missing the back part of that page, but we also had additional commenters as well. Let me pull that up. We also have virtual attendees on behalf of Vincel Bishop. That's appeal number 2. Vincel Bishop and Vincel Bishop Jr. versus the Shelby County Assessor's Office. We also received a request from Todd Barron on behalf of Adient, and a response to that request on behalf of John Sharp from on behalf of the Assessor's Office. We also received a request for oral argument on behalf of Wood Lawrenceburg Center LLC versus Lawrence County Assessor's Office on behalf of their registered agent, Lawrence Burks. And I've noted the people who have specifically filed a request, I noted as oral argument requested, and then noted the opposing party for each appeal. You also received a request for additional oral argument on behalf of the Cross Creek and Westminster Chapel appeals that were otherwise referred to me for review. Those 2 appeals were referred to me for review and advisement at the next regular meeting of the board. For both appeals, I reviewed the entire administrative record, including the audio recordings of any prior hearings before administrative judges. I reviewed the entire written argument from both parties, as well as the oral arguments presented at last meeting of the board. It's my recommendation of the board, or it's my advisement of the board, they should grant review of these appeals and ultimately affirm the initial decision and order of the administrative judge. As these are contested case proceedings under the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act, a final order is always required. Therefore, I drafted a proposed order identifying the reasons for affirming those decisions, and I included those with your packet. You're by no means required to adopt those recommendations. They are simply recommended or proposed orders. You're also free to adopt, edit them, or have any changes to those orders you may like, as well as entirely decline review of those 2 appeals. That is the presentation of your 7 new appeals and your 2 appeals from last time.
All right, starting out with case number 1 here, Adient, I guess it's Adient US LLC versus Maury County Assessor's Office. I'll comment on the outset for my own self. I've read the technical record in all of these cases, so I'm familiar with what's in them. And all of these matters, as Mr. Pope indicated, have been heard by an administrative law judge, an opportunity for the parties to present evidence, and in multiple cases, there were motions to reconsider, which were subsequently denied. So the matter's been examined by the ALJ and sometimes by a different ALJ in different times. So I'll note that for the record. Is there anyone here for Aident US LLC? President, who wishes to make a quick statement about what your
Come,
appeal
you
is
can sit up
about?
front too. If you want. Please introduce yourself and who you represent.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Barron. I represent Adient US LLC. Sorry for my dress. I'm on the way to a chicken processing plant. I figured my slacks wouldn't make it.
All right.
So Adient is a Fortune 500 company. They produce automobile seats for cars. They have 7 plants in Tennessee and employ over 2,000 people. All they're simply looking for is a fair review of their case. The property is in Maury County, and the personal property is what's at stake. And personal property is a self-reporting tax, which they did in 2000 and 2001. They filed a return. Maury County decided to audit. By all means, I agree with auditing, no doubt. But in this case, there were some nuances that we wanted to take up. In 2020, the return was filed by the plant itself because it was new. In 2021, it was taken over by the tax department, including myself. So there were some differences. In 2020, the plant did admittedly miss some assets during the capitalization process and underreported. That was corrected in the 2021 tax year. So we presented some disagreement items at the board hearing, and we had no idea that Judge Padfield, how she would rule until the ruling came out. And when the ruling came out, it was clear there was sort of this distrust of the taxpayer because of some of this underreporting, which routinely happens in personal property. I'll briefly read from the decision. Petitioner did not contest a large portion of the back assessment reassessment for the tax year 2020 and more than 30% of the back assessment for the tax year 2021. Therefore, by its own admission, the petitioner drastically underreported its assessable tangible personal property. Later on, by its own admission, petitioner failed to comply with the Tennessee Code by drastically underreporting its assessable tangible personal property for both tax years. Petitioner now asks that Mr. Reynolds' testimony, and Mr. Reynolds, by the way, is a CPA and the controller at the plant, who testified on behalf of Adient. Petitioner now asks that Mr. Reynolds' testimony and other submitted documents be given credence. No such credence is extended. So there was 2 items that we said, hey, look, these are maybe some examples real quick to give you. It's in our materials that we wrote up. One was some training materials. Since they make car seats, in July of 2019, they were launching a new seat. They brought in thousands of seat covers to practice. The employees there would practice making the seats. Those items were on the books, but as of the assessment date, they were no longer usable. During the testimony, the auditor indicated that he saw some training materials in the cubicle. Now, mind you, the auditor toured the facility 2 years later. So any material that you have seen would have been reported on the 2022 tax return, not the 2020 tax return. Nonetheless, the testimony was disregarded, even though this stuff was immaterial and unusable and unsaleable. Another item was some asset costs. The company booked some assets for 3 assets at the plant that were manufacturing equipment. The auditor saw those, saw that they looked a little funny, maybe they weren't evenly divided, and decided to add some cost. Never asked any information. The taxpayer at the hearing produced invoices. And the controller, who wasn't the controller at the time, but was the controller now, said, yeah, it may appear funny, but these invoices all add up to this asset cost divided by 3. They threw that out. They didn't accept that, saying, well, it looked odd. We don't trust this particular taxpayer. And so we're just asking for a re-review. In all my years of doing this, over 30, I've never seen a decision that sort of started this way and sort of through distrust. And personal property, there's a lot of moving parts. There's questions of taxability. There's questions of what category to put it in. So it's really not underreporting. So the fact that a taxpayer, in fact, I reviewed this audit, said, hey, some of this looks right. It doesn't mean that we're guilty of some sort of nefarious acts. So we would just ask the board to reconsider, because there's clearly a few things here that need to be looked at that aren't accurate in our opinion, based on the evidence that was clearly provided. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. I will comment, your case interested me. I read the entire record on this case, and I'm a graduate tax attorney. I did that for 28 years and tried cases in the United States Tax Court. And in this particular case, I think, the taxpayer is held to what he or she puts on the tax return, or it puts on the tax return in this case. And in this particular matter, while it might have been expressed a little differently by the court, the administrative law judge in this matter, the judge is really reciting what you'll see in many opinions of the U.S. tax court and other tax authorities that, at the outset, the taxpayer, is laying the foundation for their entire matter by what they put on that return, and they're held to it. And as you know, from the decision that was rendered there, and y'all admitted that, I think, during the course of the hearing, there were some matters that need to be corrected that were not insubstantial. And so in that regard, I didn't personally get the feeling that you were horribly wronged by the result that was obtained in this particular case. In fact, I think the judge did a good job of going through and looking at, the various aspects of it. Now, admittedly, might have been expressed a little differently at various points, and for that's a different matter. But those are my thoughts about it. But I'll ask other members of the board about theirs. All right.
And I'll just say, you're right on several counts there for sure. But there are things like the training materials that were clearly not there. They weren't on the books the following year.
Mhm.
Clear testimony what it was. Yet, the decision was, well, clearly there was some training materials 2 years later in a cubicle, $1.8 million of seats in a cubicle. Didn't make sense. But again, this was all stemming from, I'm not going to believe Mr. Reynolds because they underreported. And that just was seemingly the underlying theme on the decision.
Right. Okay. Any further discussion on this matter? Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Barron, for your presentation here today. The chair would move to decline to review this case and to affirm the decision of the administrative law judge.
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll on the motion to adopt that motion.
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Jaragano.
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett. Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. Okay, the matter is adopted. Next item is item number 2, Vincent Bishop and Vincie Bishop Jr. versus Shelby County Assessor's Office.
Did you want to receive oral argument on this appeal?
Well, if we have someone here, I think we did have someone who I want someone to make a brief statement of their appeal quickly on this matter. I don't know, we don't want to engage in actual oral argument here today, but, I want to hear from them briefly.
Yes, this is Beth
Do you wanna-
Brooks.
Do you want to have a limitation on time for
Yes.
presentation?
3 minutes is what you've been allowing.
All right, Ms. Brooks, I see that you are online, so Vice Chair, I will hold my hand up here when you get to 3 minutes.
Okay. This case has been heard by the administrative law judge. What's a little bit different, and what I want to say to the board today, is that Mr. Bishop had said, this is a Plano house, has concrete floors, Plano everything, plus the flooding issues from Lick Creek in Memphis that goes right through his property. In the meantime, and not on the year that the administrative law judge was looking, he did $58,000 worth of repairs and got a new appraisal. And I don't blame the ALJ for saying that wasn't during that, except that it in a backdoor way does show to the board that when he said his property was worth $145,250, and then he put $58,000, not counting the amount of money and slave labor that he put into it, then it finally went up to $220,000. The Shelby County assessor did finally lower his land value because a huge creek was going through it. And you'll see in the records every now and again in 2010, it took giant amounts of things from 40 feet away and slammed it up to the front of the gate. That was in July of 2010. You'll look at, if you have time, or if you have already looked at that, that was 82 to 86 in the technical record. It was from the way back of the yard to the way front. That doesn't happen very often, but it definitely has creeks through the yard. In the meantime, back in the day when this was given, when the assessment was given, there were giant sinkholes, 4 by 4 feet. In the meantime, the city has fixed those. The history was that it used to be 120. That was the year that the assessor said it ought to be worth 160. Well, they agreed after the appraiser went in and looked. And then over the years, it went up to 140 and then 180 and then 200. It just wasn't that kind of house. In fact, this house was built in 93 after the other one rotted to the ground after the giant floods kept coming in. Way back in maybe 35, 40 years ago, when I first represented this gentleman, the State Board of Review then sent their own appraiser there who came and looked at it and said, oh, they'd never have built a house on this property back, and they never should. But money's there. It did rot to the ground. There's a new one, but it was Plano and built way high up off the ground. I think one of the reasons, and this is my final sentence, that it keeps getting over and over wrong is that somebody who was not an expert in the county, I'm finishing the sentence, that's all, said, I think it's the rain gutter. No, it wasn't. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of the petitioner here, their counsel?
You also have the respondent here as well.
Okay. Now, again, I've looked at the record in this case, and it received a extensive hearing and a decision of the administrative law judge. And as the petitioner's counsel points out, they had an adjustment by Shelby County in the underlying value for some of these matters, not all of which, but maybe some of which. So it seemed to me that this matter was properly decided. Anyone have any comments or thoughts about that? All right, Chair would move to decline to review this case and to affirm the judgment of the administrative law judge.
Second.
All right. Motion and second, that's in Vincent Bishop versus Vincie Bishop Jr., Shelby County Assessor's Office. Call the roll on the motion to approve.
Yes. Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Jaragano.
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. All right, the matter is approved. Next case is Bobby L. Claiborne versus Hamilton County Assessor's Office.
We have Mr. Claiborne.
Claiborne, you have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you for being here today. Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Claiborne. My property is located in Hamilton County. The address is 2237 Peterson Drive. In 2020, tornadoes went down the street that I live on.
Mr. Chair, I want the claimant to have use of his time, and online, we're having a very hard time hearing him. Sir, you may want to lean into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my house was destroyed by a tornado, 3 tornadoes in 2020. And that was in April of, 1st of April of 2020. At that time, I started rebuilding the house. I applied for building permits, and they were approved. And the new house had 1,580 square feet. If you want to look at the building permits, I can show you those two. Also, I went through and made an itemized list of all the materials I put in the house and also all the labor I put in the house. The labor cost and material cost in the house was $134,000. The house was completed in December of 2020, and I got 3 building permits where the house was in December 2020. But unfortunately, 5 or 6 months later, they came through and, well, fortunately for me, they come by and approved the house. Well, estimated the house value to be $176,900, which is a fair estimate on the house because the house has 1,580 square feet. Well, 5 months later, they increased the value of the house from $176,900 to $303,000 without any explanation at all. Like I said, I've got an itemized list of the material costs. These are all the receipts that I compiled. And they're on this list right here. I still have the receipts at home. If you want to look at that list, which shows the material cost $134,000, a little bit more than $134,000. And the property value at the time, all the property in Drake Forest was 100 feet frontage and approximately 160, 180 feet deep. Back in, I think, 1986, 20 foot of the frontage of my property was taken out. So my property was reduced by 20%. So now the frontage of my house is 80 feet by 155, 158 feet. The 20 foot they took out of my property was distributed to the property next door. Now their property went from 100 foot frontage to 180 foot frontage or 120 foot frontage, but they never adjusted the value of the property. Also in 2020, they said that the value of the property was $45,000 a lot. Miraculously, after the property was damaged in the tornadoes, it jumped from $45,000 up to $65,000. No reason for that.
Okay, Mr. Clay, if you could finish it up here, it'd be great. Thank you.
I've got 3 comparison properties, and the 3 comparison properties that Hamilton County gave me, each of them were 30% over underestimated, 45% underestimated, 60% underestimated. And one of the properties that is listed as 2330 Peterson Drive actually had, they said it had 1,634 square feet, I believe. I can find it. But the property value was, they sold the property, they bought the property in 2022 for $370,000. And they said the property cost was approximately $226 a square feet. Well, the property didn't have 1,634 square feet. It had almost 2,400 square feet. They underestimated the property by 45%. I can go back through there and show that by dividing the cost of the house they paid for the house by the actual square footage of the house, it brings down the square footage cost from $226 to $155. Also, the house had other things that were more expensive than my house. My house is a very simple built house. The one at the very top right here, very simple roof, no extra cost in bricking. Didn't have any brick in it. Don't have any fireplaces in it. Don't have any chandeliers in it. Don't have anything extra. All the rooms are painted the same. But they wanted to compare my property being 1,580 square feet to the property being 2,400 square feet, which is 45% larger.
Well, I appreciate you pointing that out, and I enjoyed looking at those pictures in the record in your case. I've read the entire record in this case too, and you did get a copy of the initial order of the judge finally, didn't you? You got one. You said in your appeal document that the reason for the appeal is because I didn't receive the initial order and a request for reconsideration.
Well, I went to
got one ultimately, right?
Yes, sir. I got an appeal. I went to Knoxville and appealed in front of the judge, and he told me at the time he had 3 months to make a decision.
Mm.
Well, he said, normally I make a decision within a month.
Yeah.
And evidently they did not send me a copy of the decision. Only by chance, at the very last day when I had a chance to appeal this to this board, that I found out that I still had the chance. I had the very last day and I appealed it to this board because
You're here today and you got your appeal.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So, okay. But look, I wanted to note to you though, in reading through your record here, I mean, you, in multiple places in your appeal, talk about that you went into great detail into the court showing how this value should have been different, et cetera, all those things that you
Yes,
just
sir.
cited here and everything. But in most places you go through and say also, well, obviously the judge simply ignored what I said, and I just wanted to say to you that I have no doubt from reading the record that the judge did in fact consider what you said. It's just that the vagaries of assessment and how these things operate is a little bit differently from case to case and all that. But I think the judge did pay attention to what you were saying from what was said here and everything. So
what confused me was the judge said I did not prove my case. Well, after I presented my case, the same case I presented right now, even though I had 2 hours to do it and I went into far more detail,
Right.
I did present my case. And he said his decision was made because I didn't present my case. I'm not sure what world you're looking at, because I went over all three properties and they showed that their properties were undervalued by 30%, 45%, and 60%. So I'm not sure how they came across an estimate of $303,000 on my property, especially when they initially made the estimate for $176,900, and then they changed it 5 months later. I didn't even pick up on that until somebody in the board, somebody in the assessor's office said, "Why did you get your property appraised 2 times?" I said, "My property was completed in December of 2020 by the inspection tags. They were signed off by the inspection tags. So why did you go back and increase my property value from $176,900 to $303,000 without any explanation at all?"
Right. Well, I have no doubt that you received a fair hearing with the administrative law judge and that they considered your evidence. As you point out, you made those arguments in many cases or many instances in this particular case. And I appreciate you being here today and telling us a little bit more about it from your perspective here. Are there any questions of Mr. Claiborne about his appeal from any member of the board? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Claiborne, for being here today. We appreciate you coming, okay? All right. Any discussion about the matter? Okay. If not, the chair would move to decline to take jurisdiction of this case and to affirm the order of the administrative law judge. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Jaragano. All right. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, call the roll on the motion.
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Jaragano.
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. Okay, that matter passes, is adopted. Next item is Rebecca Maynard and Kenneth Mushka versus Shelby County Assessor's Office. Mr. Pope, tell us.
Ms. Muska, I believe, is virtual online, ready to present. Ms. Muska, I believe the
Yes.
same 3 minutes.
Yes.
I'll hold up my virtual hand when 3 minutes have expired, as well as my physical hand here.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Please state your
I just
name and
want,
proceed.
Becky Muska, address 715 Chaser Road, Millington, Tennessee. Just wanted to let Mr. Pope know that on July 29th in an email to him, I asked to present oral arguments because I didn't know if I needed that in order to be able to speak to y'all, but I guess apparently I didn't, so I'm able to speak to y'all. But I sent in some update documents to Mr. Pope on the 29th, and we don't have to go back over 115 pages of the certified record, but the update documents y'all have probably had a chance to look at, and it just simply it's pretty self-explanatory. The problem arose very quickly this summer that we are not living in a safe neighborhood, and I asked a realtor in Millington, Tennessee to tell us what do we need to do if we need to get out of Shelby County, and can we sell this property as is, or can we do a little bit of work on it and be able to sell it? And so she got her contractor out to take a look at our property, and that's how I come up with the summation that I supplied. That's document number 4 of the update documents. And the contractor came out and went under the house, went through the house thoroughly, went back to her, gave her the information, estimates of what needed to be done. And that's how I came up with the cost to get our house party ready, so to speak. Not as party ready as most people would like it, most buyers would like it, but at least enough that the house is not sinking anymore. Updated things such as flooring and such, and painting, and just getting it clean for a potential buyer. And that's where I came up with my figures of that I would have to deduct $36,443 because that's what I'd have to spend out of pocket to bring it up to be able to just sell it according to my real estate agent, but it's not perfect. It's not going to be one of these HGTV homes where you have all new countertops and bathrooms and kitchen and just the things that potential buyers, she said, were looking for at this time. She also said to me that the watershed situation that our property of 7.73 acres is sitting on, it's an entire watershed down to a retention pond of 1 acre. And so that's not something that's desirable for a lot of potential buyers because they look at 7.73 acres of flat land and think, oh, great, I can divide that and have some time and sell off one lot and still be able to have a septic field on both of them. Well, that's not the case with our 7.73 acres. It's a watershed and we pick the only building spot. Thank
All
you.
right, if you could close it up there, I'd appreciate it, Ms. Muska, okay? We got 3
Well,
minutes is up. Go on ahead.
Okay.
Finish up there if you could.
I certainly will. So based on deducting for the party ready costs out of pocket in the watershed situation and the external obsolescence surrounding us that is dangerous at this point, I came up with a fair market value for 2023 of $209,321.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any questions of the petitioner in regard to this matter? I'll just note for the record, in terms of reading and reviewing the record, which I've done in this case, the court comments and its opinion that there was a thorough review of the evidence submitted, and the administrative law judge found that the petitioner failed to meet the burden of proof to justify a decrease in the local board's value. But similarly, the court found that the assessor has not presented sufficient evidence to support an increase to a contended value of $386,000. So, and it points out that the assessor's contended value did not consider the issue of external obsolescence and other issues. So it again seems to me, in looking at what the court did with this matter below, that a thorough consideration of the issues was given, and that the judge took into account all of these matters in establishing the result that was in the initial order. Okay, are there any questions or anything from anyone? All right. Thank you very much for being here today and presenting your argument. The chair will move to decline to take jurisdiction of this case and also to affirm the order of the administrative law judge. All right, we have a second by Commissioner Cheragano. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Geragano.
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett,
Aye.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. All right, the motion's adopted. Next item is Stairway Truth Ministry versus Macon County Assessor's Office, item number 5.
Yes, I believe we have a audience member participant virtually online. If you could state your name, introduce yourself. Vice Chair, so you'll have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, appreciate it. All right, Sherry Truth Ministries is located in Macon County. Our position is that there's a couple of federal violations that was not actually indicated in the administrative law judge's order. She failed to apply the federal statute for the actual properties for 05, 04, and 03. And what we're holding is that as Straightway Truth Ministries, as a church, what we do here is we feed the needy and house the homeless on those particular properties and parcels that you're calling parsonages. The problem that we have right here is that we're bumping up into what they call a supremacy clause in a violation of 26-107 and what we call the Rupia law, which is under the Religious Land Use and Institutionalization Persons Act. And with those particular pieces, there was no federal, only state rules applied into her proceedings, Administrative Law Judge Leah. And so what happens there, if there's a conflict between the federal and state, she was supposed to apply the federal statute, and we don't see that in that rule of that order. So currently you're in violation of those 2 restrictive codes. All churches are already automatically, they're automatically exempt under Rule 508 of the 26 code of the IRS code. And so the code that we're being denied under is a local code. But then again, the supremacy clause under Article 4 and 2 is simply ignored. Now, under Howlett and Rose, the Supreme Court has already ruled in this matter. You must apply the same intricate parts of the federal statute along with the state. And we don't see that in this ruling. And that's our holding currently. So we got 2 violations, and we're trying to understand where did she get that predicament from? And we're trying to understand why the other case law was not applied in this matter. Because feeding the homeless and housing the homeless is a burdensome task. And we don't see that rule and established here in her ruling. So that's where we hold. I don't think I needed 3 minutes. We know where the violations are.
All right, thank you very much for that. Are there any questions of the petitioner about this matter? All right. Again, I've read the record in this case, and there's a very detailed 10-page order by the administrative law judge here that I've read, and the administrative law judge gave you some of what you were seeking in the result and everything, and applied the law correctly. I would submit based on what I've seen here in the ALJ's order. So it's both, it's by implication, it's the federal and the state rule, you know, so
Actually, it's part
all
of
of
the
that was
Federal Circuit.
considered. I know that.
Okay.
And, you know, I think those principles were taken into account in this matter. So for that, in that regard, if there are no further questions, the chair would move to decline jurisdiction in this matter and to affirm the order of the administrative law judge. Is there a second? Second. I have a second by Commissioner Giorgano. All right, Mr. Pope, call the roll on the motion.
Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgano. Aye. Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. The motion is adopted. All right, next item is item number 6, which is Wood Lawrenceburg Center LLC versus Lawrence County Assessor's Office.
So we've got Mr. Larry Burks.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you for granting us an opportunity to speak with you today. I'll give a brief description of this property first. The subject of the appeal is an older shopping center. 54% of the building is over 50 years old, and the remaining portion is 37 years old, and it's located in Lawrenceburg. It has a net rentable area of 174,000 square feet, so it's a large shopping center in a relatively small town. It had vacancy rates of 16.3% in 21 and 20.4% in 22. Average rent with reimbursements was $5.94 a square foot, 21 and 22. There are 4 issues that we feel should be reconsidered. The first is the amount allowed for reserves for replacement. The building needs a new roof on approximately 83% of the shopping center, or 144,000 square feet. The estimated cost to replace the roof, excuse me, is $1,590,000. That works out to be approximately $11 a square foot. Assuming a 25-year life, $1,590,000 would require approximately $64,000 annually to be set aside for a roof. The administrative judge used 3% of gross income, which works out to be $28,000 annually, which is less than half of the amount that they would need for the roof replacement. When you consider that the subject property is only generating $5.94 a square foot, other shopping centers in better locations that generate more in gross income, and they're also receiving more allowed reserves. But the cost of a roof replacement in Lawrenceburg would be the same as a roof replacement anywhere. Subject property's lower gross income and the resulting lower allowance for reserves puts it at a disadvantage. The property was purchased in 2006, and management would have needed to set aside $88,000 annually for the 18 years of property ownership to cover the cost of the roof replacement, while the judge's decision limited the reserves to $28,000 annually. Two, we also had an issue with the division's vacancy and collection loss at 5% of gross revenue. I mentioned earlier the vacancy in 21 was 16.3% and 20.4% in 22. We had another issue with their cap rate of 8.3, which was a second tier property. It felt like this property, because of its age and location, was more of a third tier property. We also have issues with the methodology used by the division to calculate the effective tax rate. And it's something we don't agree with, allowing only the taxes that were not reimbursed to be accounted for in the cap rate.
Okay. All right. Any questions of the gentleman in regard to his comments here? All right. Chair has no comments on this particular case, so it's what the board wants to do with this matter. Mr. Pope, do you have any observations on this case? The Wood Lawrenceburg case?
No, if the board would like to refer it to me for review and advisement, I can take that up at next meeting.
Okay. Chair makes a motion that we refer this matter to the next meeting for review by the executive secretary. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Aaron. All right. Seeing no discussion, call the roll on the motion.
Ms. Burgett,
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgano.
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. So the matter is adopted there. That motion's adopted. Next item, thank you very much, sir. Next item is item number 7, Joffrey and Joan Young versus Blount County Assessor's Office.
I do not know if we have a presenter. I believe Mr. Todd Orr from the Assessor's Office is here, but I don't know if we have any presenter on behalf of the appellant.
All right. Do you have any comment on this case, Mr. Pope?
I do not.
This is one I did not read the opinion on. So do you have any summary of the facts of this case?
I believe I can do a quick summary. Just give me just half a moment. Sorry. A little technical difficulty. Just one moment more.
Okay.
This appeal was filed by Jeffrey and Joan Young on behalf of their property, contending a lower value. Mr. Young and the Chief Deputy Assessor looks like participated at the administrative judge level. I believe the main contention of the taxpayer, if I'm reading this one, recall everything correctly, was an issue about square footage relating to some stairs on the property. Stairs that went to the basement level, approximately 80 square feet. Taxpayer contending it would being double, some form of double taxation on that square footage, since it wasn't livable space. Administrative judge ultimately found, I believe, upheld the county board value. Local board valuation is reasonable and affirmed.
All right. Chair moves to decline jurisdiction and to affirm the decision of the district law judge. Is there a second? Second is by Secretary Hargett. All those, let's see, I guess we have to call the roll. Mr. Pope, please call the roll.
Yes. Ms. Burchett,
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgano.
Aye.
Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargett, Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. Motion's adopted. The next items are the items that were held over from the last meeting in April, i.e. number one is Cross Creek, Tennessee LLP versus Knox County Assessor's Office, and number two, Westminster Chapel, DBA Stevens Valley Church versus Davidson County Assessor's Office. This was held over and referred to the Executive Secretary for review, and the Executive Secretary has in our materials recommended that the board affirm the decision of the ALJ in both appeals and has drafted proposed orders. Mr. Jones, I don't think there's much else we need to talk about at this point. Well, you talked the last meeting, as I recall, and you and I had a good exchange on this matter, and it's been looked at extremely thoroughly, so.
Sure. If I might just mention a point or two remain to the comments of a couple of the board members, yourself on this one, and Ms. Burchett regarding Westminster Chapel. If I could address Westminster Chapel, Mr. John Avery, the Chief Administrative Officer, is here. He was last time, not asking him to speak or you all to listen to anyone else speak, but just to let you know he's here and we can let him go once the Westminster matter is covered. In this matter, we had asked for the board to take note of previous decisions that would have granted relief from the deadline to apply for an exemption. The question that Ms. Burchett raised, however, dealt with an issue that came up only after the matter was heard by the administrative judge and also by the Assessment Appeals Commission. Assessment Appeals Commission remanded on the primary issue, but not this one question that we'd like to raise. Assessors are required, when a property is not complete as of January 1, to make an assessment of the cost of materials only on site. And in the course of the hearing of this case, it turns out, if you look at the notice of new value for tax year 2020, which is part of the record, the value clearly contemplates a completed facility, not just the materials in place. We have determined that the materials in place were about a third less than the value of the property as a whole. We believe that there is not only precedent in your decisions, specifically the Riverside Baptist Association case before the commission a few years ago, but also in the rules that allow amendments of initial appeals, both as a matter where something's been overlooked or where evidence has been offered and to conform to the evidence. So in this case, if you follow that rule, which basically provides that the decision to allow the amendment to address this issue lies in your discretion. It says that leave to amend shall be freely given when justice so requires. So what we're asking for you to do with this Westminster Chapel is to allow the parties to visit that issue about the proper assessment of a building that's not yet been completed as of January 1 of the tax year. Hopefully they can agree. It's a matter of accounting what that cost was, but that would require basically that the initial decision in order simply be modified to permit the parties to engage in that discussion and, if necessary, to have limited fact-finding just on that issue.
Okay, comments, questions from board members about this matter? Westminster. All right, do we have a motion with respect to Westminster?
Move to decline review.
All right, motion to decline review and to affirm the decision of the administrative law judge. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All right. No further discussion. So, Mr. Pope, would you call the roll?
Ms. Burchett?
Yes.
Commissioner Jaragano?
Aye.
Ms. Merrick?
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower?
Yes.
Secretary Hargett?
Yes.
Treasurer Lillard?
Aye. The motion is adopted. Next item is Cross Creek TNLP versus Knox County Assessor's Office.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And in that case, last go around, we pointed out that all of the proof and the findings in the initial decision and order pertain to allegations of defective notice or late notice
of a matter that came up before the Knox County Board of Equalization. And the decision, the initial decision in order basically said, well, let's give the county board another go at it. But the initial decision went further, and without taking any proof on the primary issue in the case, which is a very important policy question, when can an assessor, after a reappraisal has been accomplished, change values to reflect a more recent sale? It's called sales chasing. It's been outlawed by the highest court in the land, and it was simply not addressed, other than in the course of a conclusory sentence that said that that claim was without merit. And what I am suggesting to you today is, and yes, Mr. Chairman, we did have some discussion of this. What I'm suggesting to you is that the initial decision in order be modified to take the matter of the equal protection claims under advisement and allow either the administrative judge on remand, or if you want to send it back to the County Board of Equalization, either of those places, to at least do some fact finding. We've not had our case yet on our equal protection claim. It would be a shame for an administrative decision to come before court before the agency has even made factual findings. So that's our request here, that you simply modify the initial decision in order to allow proof on this important question of equal protection in a matter that involves sales chasing. It can be done with a minor modification of the order that you have before you in the form of the initial decision in order or Secretary Pope's modification of it.
All right, do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, is there a motion with respect to this matter, Cross Creek TNLP? Mr. Jones, I'll just comment that I don't know that the record is totally devoid of anything that might support or does support, in fact, the result that was reached in this case. Your argument about equal protection, it's there, I guess, but I don't find it to be dispositive in this matter. So I'm going to move to decline jurisdiction and to affirm the decision of the administrative law judge. Is there a second? A second by Secretary Hargett. Pope, call the roll.
Ms. Burchett?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgino?
Aye.
Ms. Merrick?
Aye.
Comptroller Mumpower?
Aye.
Secretary Hargett? Treasurer Lillard?
Aye. All right, the motion is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for being
Thank
here.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Previous discussions at the last meeting. All right, the next item we have on the matter is item number 8, an information item, scheduling of public utility assessments review and certification. Mr. Pope.
Correct. This is simply informational. It is also our next board meeting. So we have reserved Monday, October 14th at 1 p.m. in the volunteer conference room for the presentation of those appeals. As an aside, those appeals are usually then referred through the appeals process to an administrative judge for further consideration.
Okay, no discussion on that. Item number 9 is the next one, elect vice chair pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated 4-3-5102. Matter is before the
Mr.
board.
Chair.
Yes, Comptroller.
Mr. Chair, I think you have demonstrated over and over today that you are an extraordinarily competent vice chair. I nominate Treasurer David Lillard to continue in the position as vice chair.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Or a second? I sure wish there were a competing candidate. All right.
Indeed.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, okay. All right, Mr. Pope, call the roll on the motion.
Ms. Burchett?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgino?
Yes.
Ms. Merrick?
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower?
Yes.
Secretary Hargett?
Yes.
Treasurer Lillard?
I'll abstain. Show me as abstaining, okay? All right. Okay, motion is adopted. Any further business come before the Board of Equalization today? If not, motion to adjourn is in order. Is there a motion?
Motion.
A second? Is there a second?
Second.
A second, all right.
Final vote?
A motion to adjourn.
Ms. Burchett?
Yes.
Commissioner Giorgino? Ms. Merrick,
Yes.
Comptroller Mumpower,
Yes.
Secretary Hargit,
Yes.
Treasurer Lillard.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much for your service to the state and to the board.